I'm Stephen John Drew from the official GonnaGeek.com show, a weekly geek news podcast that is a part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other awesome geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Stand by for a brand new episode of All Things Good and Nerdy.
Good morning, everyone, and we're back. We have recovered from technical difficulties 2 weeks in a row. We'll say that now as things are running. And we are here for episode 371 of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast, recorded live on Sunday, September 8th, 2019. And if the NFL is your jam, it's the first day of Sunday NFL games. So I already know what I'm doing after this, which is going upstairs and watching the NFL Red Zone. I'm Chris. Joining me like normal, we have the one, the only, well, not only, but Willie Nelson.
Hey, are we gonna have another 20-minute risk it for the biscuit talk in the prologue thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. And then also joining me, as per the norm, Anthony Bachman.
Hello, people.
We got some excitement for you guys today. We're away for 2 weeks. We're gonna come back big though. And Anthony, how are we coming back big? We got a guest today, right?
We're coming back big with one of our favorite writers from Action Lab, Patton Oswalt's favorite comic creator, David Pepose.
Ooh.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me.
That's right. You might remember David. He's been on. This is his third appearance, I think, on the show. He's come on twice to talk to us about Spencer and Locke, which we love. And now he's got his new book that he teased a little bit last time he was on here with us, saying it's coming soon. It's coming soon. Well, it's here now, and it's exciting. And I've read issue 1, and we all know Patton Oswalt read issue 1 as well because he tweeted about it. If you're watching the live stream right now, we have Patton Oswalt's tweet where he said, "Every Wednesday I take a chance on a new title, and man oh man did I hit the jackpot today with Action Lab's Going to the Chapel. Slick, funny, and great opening to what looks to be a gritty gut bucket crime kicker." And I have to say, how cool is that to see Patton Oswalt tweeting about your book?
It's super cool. Totally unexpected. I was in the middle of a store signing when suddenly my Twitter blew up, and
Nice.
it was amazing. And he was super gracious about the whole thing. And we're very grateful for the shout out. And I got to talk a little bit with Patton after the fact, and so we are using that quote in our trade for sure.
Oh, you have to use that.
Right?
Yes. I asked him for permission. I wanted to make sure he was cool with that. And he was like, please use the quote. And I actually sent him an early copy of the rest of the series. So hopefully the rest of the series pays off for him. But yeah, it's been an incredible reception for the book, no pun intended. It's 4.5 million people just learned about our book in one morning.
Yeah, that's marketing you can't buy right there. As a fellow geek being like, this is awesome, and tweeting it out on their platform, and it kind of helps that Patton Oswalt's platform kind of big.
So I only have one question about this.
Yeah.
Did you retweet that, or did you I'm gonna play it cool? Yeah, it's whatever. It's just
I definitely
retweeted
retweeted it with the words holy crap with a mind blown emoji. No, yes, I did not play that cool one bit. Well, the thing is part of the reason why I certainly didn't play it cool was actually the night before the book dropped, I went to the emergency room with a kidney stone.
Oh no.
So I spent the whole night in the ER waiting for the stone to pass. Went home, slept for about 2 hours, and then got up for my first of 2 back-to-back store signings.
Oh, wow.
So while I'm kind of I was still in enough pain that my body didn't know it was dead, and that's when I know my pitch now just based on muscle memory, so I was able to still interact with people even though my memory was pretty fleeting. And that's when I looked down at my phone and I was like, what is this day? Is the simulation breaking?
Am I having delusions because I've had no sleep? What is going on?
Yeah. So it was I had a lot of friends messaging me that day being like, kidney stones and Patton Oswalt, you're having a day, buddy. And I was like, yeah, I am having a day. So it was great. People have really seemed to enjoy the book, which is very encouraging to me. We took a long time shopping around, going to the chapel, and a lot of publishers said that they loved it and didn't know how to sell it. And now I can say, this is how you sell it.
Yes.
Get Patton Oswalt to tweet about your
Exactly. Get Patton Oswalt to be like,
Mhm.
I like this
Yeah.
book. And I'm
It's-
sure it probably helped that you worked with Action Labs before with Spencer and Locke too. So
book. Yes. So they know I'm willing to go out and pound the pavement for whatever weird concept I present to them.
you'll go out and be at all the conventions, you do all the store signings you can, and hey, it's
Yeah.
paying off because I've read issue 1. I love it. I was talking about it at my local
Thank you.
store, and I was like, you guys, this is really good. David might have sent us a preview about this, so I already knew what was going to be in it, but buy it. You're going to love it. And I had a couple guys that talked to me like, yeah, you were right. This was good.
Well, and tell them, you can tell them issue 1 is actually our slowest issue.
Oh, man.
We going to the chapel, for those who aren't familiar with the series, it's about a gang of bank robbers who think it'd be easier to rob rich people's weddings than it would be to rob banks, and finding out just how wrong they are. It's like if Die Hard met Wedding Crashers, or if Reservoir Dogs had a baby with Arrested Development and then brought that baby to a wedding. And so it's
Fucked up baby.
it's a messed up baby. And so we've got 15 or 16 speaking roles, and almost all of them are trapped inside this chapel. And so our first issue, we're introducing all of these characters, and I think we introduce them with enough in such a way that people will still feel satisfied with it. They're our bride, for example, Emily Anderson. She's dealing with a case of cold feet, and she's sort of the emotional center for the whole book because she's trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to marry my fiance? Like, do I want to try to get out of this? And but her extended family is also super bizarre. It's like the Bluth family from
Yes.
Arrested Development.
I got very much that vibe of the Bluths, and that's part of the fun because I love Arrested Development.
Yeah. Well, then you will love this book. And so we introduce them, and we sort of introduce our bank robbers, who are known as the Bad Elvis Gang. We introduce the beginning of their heist, but once we have everybody sort of locked in position by the end of the first issue, we put the pedal to the metal hard. People, I think, are going to get they're going to get like whiplash with issue 2. That's how fast it's going to move.
I love it.
And we do not we don't slow down for the rest of the series. It is yeah. So if people like the first issue, they are going to love issues 2, 3, and 4.
I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, we'd gotten to have a preview of it because you sent it to us when we were setting up the original guest appearance on this, and I read it, and I was trying to be an evangelist for it, and I was just like, "You're gonna love it, I promise." And
I appreciate it.
I think
appreciate it.
I think part of it resonates to me a little bit because I kind of understood a lot of the stuff that she's having cold feet right before getting married, and the husband who's all cool about it because I just got married shortly before, so I understand like all of that stress and just how everything coming up to the wedding. You're like, oh my god, all this stuff's going on. Am I thinking clear on things? And while I never really had any doubt into getting married, I just understand the craziness that surrounds it that was able to be portrayed there. And I kind of loved the whole hashtag you even put in there at one comment, like Emily's pre-wedding jitters or something like that. I can't even remember the exact line, but I was like,
more
that's
Emily,
great.
more problems.
Yeah, that's it. I loved it.
That was a. I looked up a number of really stupid wedding hashtags before I settled on that one. Going back to my my notorious BIG love. But yeah, no, it's funny you say that because the whole reason that I came up with the story in the first place was similar. I was the best man at a wedding, and I was the worst best man of all time. I did such a terrible job of being the best man. I was living in California, and my friend was living in North Carolina.
Hey!
So, and the bachelor party I planned was the most cursed bachelor party in the history of bachelor parties. First off, I was trying to plan the thing from the wrong side of the country, which, that showed him. I remember the Airbnb was trashed. I had rented some inflatable sumo suits for the backyard, thinking that would be kind of funny, not knowing that the backyard was at a 45-degree angle.
Oh no.
That adds to difficulty and fun.
Yeah. Well, then you just roll down the hill. And I had a couple of groomsmen bail at the last second because they decided they just didn't want to pay their share of the bachelor party. So I got hosed on that. And then I actually wound up getting a kidney stone.
Oh no.
right before the party, so I actually couldn't go. I was told by a doctor you cannot get on a plane until this thing passes. So I spent like a week and a half in just like agony with like painkillers, and I was just incapacitated. And I remember thinking at the time, well, at least this didn't happen during the wedding. And then I thought, but what if it did? And I thought, my first thought was the worst thing that could have happened to that wedding was if my friend's father-in-law had hired some leg breakers to convince him not to marry his only child.
Jeez.
And then I realized, no, that's not the worst thing. The worst thing that would have happened is if my friend's wife, if she'd gotten second thoughts and said like, wait, what am I doing? And I realized that was like a really emotional arc that a character could explore. Because I feel like somebody's romantic history says so much about them, and it shapes them, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. But I think there's always this sense of fear or intimidation before you have these kind of big life-changing events. And saying "till death do us part," that's a long time. And so if people haven't really thought that thing through, or if sort of the enormity of that seems like a little intimidating, that's not crazy. That's being human. And so I thought that was kind of a really fun journey to explore for this series. And but by being able to externalize that with a hostage situation gone wrong, that's why our tagline is love is the ultimate hostage situation. Because as you'll see, when you're sort of that's the thing about being close with people, whether it's romantically or it's your dysfunctional family, is when you're in close proximity with them long enough, sometimes the masks start to slip, the mask of respectability and normalcy. And then you get to see like the true self, the super weird true self start to pop out. And that's the kind of comedy that I really enjoy.
I've been enjoying it too. Granted, issue 1, so there's a lot more to come. And like you said, if that's the slowest one, I can't even imagine what the next 3 are going to be like, because there's kind of a breakneck pace even for an intro issue on things. It starts to speed up, and you're like, whoa.
Like, what is going on? Yeah, well, it's super fun. I felt like the cool thing about writing a wedding book is there's so much imagery that's so iconic that sort of is in kind of the collective consciousness, so to speak. And that was something I kind of wanted to weaponize in a way. And you'll see, all the kind of tropes for weddings. How do we turn those on its ear during this kind of heist / hostage situation / jailbreak? And I mean, the fun part about this series is Emily, our bride to be, she's gonna kind of find herself in this weird position of almost becoming the ringleader of her own hostage situation, as she tries to figure out, like, do I want to go through with this wedding or not? And that was, one of my favorite crime movies is Dog Day Afternoon. And that was something I really wanted to take from that for this book, is that the line between hostage and hostage taker starts to get blurred after a little while, after being in like close proximity in this very intense situation for not that long of a time. And there's a lot of comedy that comes from that. In Dog Day Afternoon, you would see that, Al Pacino is, taking a lot of people hostage. But within by the first half of the movie, suddenly like all these hostages, like they're kind of buddy with them a little bit. And the crowd outside is like cheering him on, as he's like screaming at the cops. And there's something there's something really funny about that to me. I feel like there's a comedy of being trapped in close proximity with people that it's very uncomfortable, but you get to be really hard. And I don't know if you know this, but people in like their natural habitats, they're super weird. So seeing sort of that respectability start to slip and people become their real selves, that's fun. That's super fun for me.
Yeah, I could see it.
I'm the old man here, so I know I've seen Dog Day Afternoon, but I don't know, Chris and Willie, have you guys both even seen that movie?
That's a negative, Ghost Rider.
I know of it.
You should see it. It's sort of one of those. I mean, like Al Pacino has a ton of iconic movies, but this is like on that list.
Yep.
The premise of Dog Day Afternoon for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's basically it's a bank robbery gone wrong. It's a bank robbery that goes totally sideways and turns into a hostage situation, and Al Pacino's character, without giving too much away, it's like he had brought two accomplices with him, and one of the accomplices like immediately gets cold feet like at the beginning and just like runs off. Like he runs off like 2 minutes into the hostage or into the heist. And so it's Al Pacino and his lover, and what winds up happening is they're like, oh well, this was supposed to be like an easy smash and grab, and they're like, oh yeah, no, you missed out. Like the money, there's no money here. Like we already did a transfer, or it's like the money isn't showing up for a while.
Yeah,
so
the timing's off.
The timing is off. They like totally botched it, and so of course like the police are already outside, and they're like, oh crap, how do we get out of this in one piece? And so it's sort of how these bank robbers are trying to like keep the police at arm's length and but also like figuring out like, what do we do about our hostages? Like one of them's a diabetic. Like what do we do with that? And it's sort of in a way it's a very cool like crime movie, but there's like this undercurrent of this sense of humor that's like really fun. There's another movie that I really enjoyed as well that really kind of went into this, and people probably haven't seen this one either. It's called Death at a Funeral.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen
it.
Yeah,
they did two versions of it. Chris Rock did a remake of it a few years back.
Yeah, the remake had a Dinklage, right?
Well, I think Peter Dinklage is in both of them. He's in both of them.
That's right.
He's in both of them, and what that's about is it's about the world's worst funeral. It's about, you know, this dad passes away and his dysfunctional family is trying to give him like a dignified send off, and everything that can go wrong does go wrong. Like one of the sister or the cousins brings in her new boyfriend, and he's very nervous about meeting the family, so she's like, oh well, I'll give you one of my brother's Xanaxes, not realizing that it's actually like LSD.
Oh no.
And so this poor boyfriend is like tripping out the entire funeral and like starting to violently hallucinate. You know, for example, the Peter Dinklage's character, we find out that he was the late father's lover, and he's got photographs, and he's saying like, if you don't pay me $10,000, I'm going to show these photos to your mom.
Oh, I remember this now.
And
yeah, I remember the Chris Rock one. I remember it being a remake. I forgot that it was a remake of a very recent film. I forgot Dinklage was in the original.
Yeah, Dinklage was in both of them, playing the same character. And I thought it was such a funny movie, and it's got such a big sprawling cast, and like everybody's super dysfunctional. All of them are super weird, and because they wind up having to kind of like stall the funeral a few times, you know. It made me laugh so hard. It's one of my favorite comedies, and it's all because, you know, your family is such a hostage situation that like when you are trapped with these people that you know so deeply, and yet they knew you back then, so it's sort of that disconnect between who you were back then versus who you are right now and who you're trying to be, but your family's always trying to pull you back to who you were back then. There's something super funny about that to me. You know, it's sort of one of those things, you know, love will make people do crazy things, and it doesn't have to be necessarily romantic love. You know, it can just be sort of love of family. People start doing weird stuff, especially when they can't go home. And go back to their sort of natural environment. So, you know, those were two movies that I that really spoke, you know, informed a lot about going to the chapel. You know, in addition to, you know, things like Die Hard, you know, old school Tarantino like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. You know, even just romantic comedies. You know, Runaway Bride. You know, When Harry Met Sally. Bridget Jones's Diary was a big one that went into that. You know, it's kind of a weird mishmash of influences that go into this.
That's what makes it so fun.
Yeah, that's exactly. You know, I felt like part of the reason I pursued this book, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's a romantic comedy. just as much as it is sort of a crime thriller. And the reason I did that was because I thought, well, rom-coms get such a bad rap in not just the direct market where they don't really do rom-coms, but in
something you don't see on the comic shelves anymore.
Yeah, but even just pop culture, rom-coms get a bad rap. When I first was starting to talk about this book at conventions, I would ask people, "Hey, anybody here fans of romantic comedies?" And almost exclusively, people would turn up their nose. And I got to thinking about that. Well, why
That's
is that?
because people don't want to appear to like them in public, even though they fucking love them in private.
Yes.
Well, give me a good old classic Matthew McConaughey rom-com, and I'm having a good goddamn day.
All right.
That's the thing is that I think in public, a lot of men feel like their masculinity is being threatened, and a lot of women feel like their respectability is being threatened. And so if they admit, oh, I like rom-coms, they'll say, oh, well, I'm either less of a man, or I'm basic, or I'm dumb, or I'm shallow. And my thought is like, no, like I think some of my favorite movies have that similar romantic foundation. You've got Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, you've got About Time, you've got 500 Days of Summer, all the way back to things like Chasing Amy and When Harry Met Sally. And I think romance is a cool way to establish stakes in a way that doesn't involve shooting somebody.
That's fair.
And I feel like romance is just as flexible of a genre as sci-fi, as superheroes, and as crime. But I felt like, to paraphrase Mary Poppins, I had to kind of add some sugar to make the medicine go down. And so I thought by kind of mashing up these rom-com tropes with this kind of fun, irreverent, stylized action, we kind of had something. We had a rom-com that could appeal to everybody. And so that's why, when I pitch this now to people, I say, oh, it's Die Hard meets Wedding Crashers. And people are like, oh, that sounds like super fun. And they don't realize that, when they read this book, there's also, I think, like a really human love story in the middle of all of it.
Because that means it's Die Hard in a rom-com.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Cold
think
feet is easier to deal with a gun in your hand.
Yeah, and I feel like
cold
it's
feet, warm hand.
Smoking gun. I feel like it's the kind of story that it's a little bit of counter programming to the direct market. I think it's the kind of book that's going to hit a lot of people sideways, but that was kind of what I wanted. I feel like if you're not putting a risk into your story, I found that with writing Spencer and Locke and Spencer and Locke 2, if you have a little bit of risk to it, people will show up just to see if you like stick the landing or if you just like completely crash and burn. And I kind of like that. Like I like having that audience seeing if like I'm going to screw it all up. It makes me write harder, I think. And I think it makes my team, my creative teams work harder. And it's so satisfying when you're going to stick the landing. And granted, of course, we could never have anticipated getting like a celebrity to tweet about us. That is like, that's, the cherry on top. But I think even if we hadn't, the reviews of our book have been so positive across the board. And I think it just goes to show that this was the thing I was telling publishers when I was shopping this is no one is telling stories like this. And that's why you have to print this.
Right.
Is there's a whole demographic that is not being served in comics. And I think we're kind of on the leading edge in a way of that sort of thing. I tend to look at comics existentially. It's what are we going to do so my kids can read comics? What can we do so I can stay in comics? I can be a 30-year man like Morrison or Slott or Jeff Johns. And the answer to that is we got to get new readers and we got to bring more people to the table. And this should be like the most important thing that comics do. And they should be doing it all day, every day. And so doing a rom-com, that's the kind of story that, not only will comics readers, who are curious engage with that, but I think it's a story that is accessible to non-comics fans. And that's what I really want. Is I'm not looking to preach to the choir with any of these books. I'm looking for converts. And I think a book like Going to the Chapel, it's so unlike anything else that's on the stands right now that I think even if you're not a comics fan, it's a book that you can really enjoy.
So this is the kind of book that I would hand to my wife to read. My wife, she reads comics. She likes Batman, a few other things, but she's a big fan of, I want to read something that's different than the normal things I see on the stands. And she's been out of town the past couple weeks, and she just got back in town, but it's probably going to be the book I'm going to hand over to her tomorrow and be like, hey, you should really check this one out, because this is going to scratch that itch you have for something different.
Exactly. Like, it's one of those things. I love superheroes. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge superhero fan. And of course, like I love the gritty stuff. I mean, Spencer and Locke. It's hard to get grittier than that, I think. And sci-fi is fun. I'm writing a sci-fi book right now, and I've got a couple other sci-fi pitches I'm working on. But taking something that's so off the beaten path, that's fun. Like, that's super cool. And I feel like that's the thing that I want to keep doing as a creator, is just kind of taking not left field approaches, but like approaches that some people, if somebody tells me this is impossible to sell, that's like, I'm like, oh, game on, let's do this. Like rejection only fuels me. It happened with Spencer and Locke for sure. And, I'll say this, since it's early in the morning, my time, and I'm punchy, for Spencer and Locke, I remember very clearly a top 5 publisher told me this is the best thing we'll never publish, which only encouraged me to keep pushing it. And that was before we had art. They even just in the treatment stage, they said this is the best thing we'll ever publish. With Going to the Chapel, I remember showing this to an editor, and he was less kind about the thing. He was actually kind of a jerk about it. He was just like, nah. And I remember he was taking some digs at like our pitch pages, and I remember I sort of was like, all right, I'm going to sell this thing now. Like, I was like, now I have to sell this thing, because that guy was such a jerk about it. And so I'm not that kind of petty where I'd send the guy a tweet from Patton Oswalt, but it's one of those things that I always tell creators, at panels. I'm like, rejection's your friend, because you can either take it as like, oh no, my idea is terrible and it's not viable, which, if your idea isn't viable, then it's good to know that. But if your idea is viable and it's of professional quality, rejection is like the best fuel, where I just am like, for me, anytime somebody rejects me, I'm like, oh, I'll show you. I don't write all of my books out of spite, but my best ones are out of spite.
Yeah, spite helps though.
Spite certainly helps.
It's a driving force.
It's a driving force. And I remember, and I think any creator who doesn't is either lying to you or themselves. But, I remember the setbacks, and I remember the rejections, and I remember the handful of bad reviews we've gotten. And I remember distinctly somebody saying, who is Spencer and Locke even for? And boy, I wanted to show those 5 Ringo Award nominations. I was like, it's for those guys. But yeah, I mean, comics is it's a contact sport, and I think being able to know that you've got an idea that you feel passionate about, that's what gets you through the rejections. And that's certainly, I mean, we got rejected all over the place by Going to the Chapel, of publishers who were well-meaning but didn't see the potential. And that's part of the reason why I love working with Action Lab, is that that's all they do, is that they say, this looks cool, this could be a fun book, and they're not necessarily in their heads about like, oh, what's our brand going to look like over this, or what's even the dollars and cents on this going to look like. They're just like, okay, this is a book that, like, this looks cool, like, let's do it, let's run with it. And I think that's starting to pay off.
Those are the things we like.
Knowing Sean Pryor, I was not surprised to see you back at Action Labs with this one, after Going to the Chapel after Spencer and Locke, because I mean, this is the company that won their first Eisner for Princeless.
Yeah,
the book that introduced the concept of a princess who saves herself.
Yep.
Like, the Action Lab has always been like, no, we're gonna do things differently. Like our books are not gonna fit into the mold.
Yeah, well, and I think it's the thing I like about Action Lab is, I mean, they're a pretty streamlined operation. I think, and so I think they pick and choose their battles pretty carefully, and they do it early. I've hung out with Brian Seaton and Jason Martin and Dave Dwanch, and I've tabled with sort of the Action Lab core group enough times that I know them pretty well, and I know their process decently well. And I think they'll often, any concerns they have, they'll usually kind of be bringing it up at the pitch stage, where they'll say, okay, like, is this a book that we think, like, would work? And I don't think their bar is like, oh, will this thing be like a massive, like, runaway success? But just like, is this even like, would this hit like the diamond thresholds kind of viability? Yeah. And sometimes they'll look at books and they'll be like, well, maybe this might work digitally, because then you don't have to worry about sort of the print costs, and then you can just do a print trade. And I've heard certain creators actually kind of extol that kind of that kind of distribution. And but beyond that, sort of once they've taken the pitch, they don't really mess around with the product, which is great. I think there are a lot of indie publishers out there. I think, Image notwithstanding. And even then, I've heard stories behind the scenes of Image sort of, especially their various imprints, but Image sort of having to sort of give a thumbs up or a thumbs down on, certain things. But Action Lab, they don't really have the bandwidth to be micromanagers. And I think there are a lot of publishers out there who I think wind up chasing their own tails, where they feel like they have to sort of keep their fingers in the pie. And yet there's all these other elements that they are uniquely qualified to do as publishers that they don't do as publishers because they're so busy trying to control the story. And I feel like trusting creators that's the thing. You got to trust your creators to tell their story. And I feel like if, every pitch is supposed to have like a full treatment of your story. So you should know exactly where the thing's headed before, you're even considering it. So that's why I like working with Action Lab. I can tell you, for example, working on Spencer and Locke with them, if that had been with any other publisher, that book wouldn't have worked. Because any other publisher would have said, oh, you can't do that, or you can't do that, or a less reputable publisher would have said, oh, like, let's really lean into this and like, let's make this like exploitive, which I didn't want to do either.
Right.
I think working with a place like Action Lab, they let the creators call their own shots, and that can be an intimidating thing for some people. I've heard of people say, oh, well, why can't this publisher do XYZ things? And my thought is, this is the best training a young creator can have. Being able to know, like, how do you put together a creative team? How do you finance a book? How do you find variant artists? How many variants do you want to do? How do you market and promote a book? How do you deal with retailers? How do you organize convention signings? I jokingly refer to Action Lab as Image with a worse percentage, just because it's not the Image deal, because only Image has the Image deal, famously, that the deal is their brand. But Action Lab, even their percentages are generous compared to the rest of the industry, and they will let you put together the book that you envision. And I think that's really important, and that's why it always kind of bugs me when Action Lab gets underestimated. And I think it's in part because they've had such a wide spectrum of titles over the years. Like you said, this is the company that not only prints Princeless, but they also print Zombie Tramp. And and they're starting to get this kind of third way where it's sort of these more mature things like Tomboy or Cyrus Perkins and the Haunted Taxi Cab, come down to Spencer and Locke and go into the chapel. And there are still outlets who I think underestimate Action Lab, perhaps to their peril. But I think, people are starting to see that, oh, this is a publisher that like they give you the freedom to take some risks, and that's a rarity in this marketplace, I think. And so that's why I really enjoy working with them. And while of course it can be challenging being kind of your own one-man band, I think it makes you a better creator in a lot of ways.
It probably makes it more rewarding when it hits with people too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all three of my books at this point, the success that they've gotten, it's been based on willpower. Not just from me, but I think from my creative team, because it takes a lot of willpower to deal with me as a creator. And I think oh, sorry. That's boy, it's like everybody's ears are burning. My publisher just sent me a Skype message, asking if I'm going to be at some particular shows. Yes, but I like working with Action Lab. They've been nothing but supportive of me during the whole thing, and the fact that they stood behind a book like Going to the Chapel, it really speaks volumes to them as a publisher. And I think, I wish for nothing but the best of success for them moving forward. And I know I'm excited to be telling more stories with them. We have not announced yet, but I do have one more book at least with them coming out sometime in the future. So and probably more. No, they're a wonderful crew to work with. I really enjoy it.
It sure sounds like it. And like you were saying, there's been some great stuff you guys have done together. So that's really cool. Now, I got to ask a slightly different question here, but you talked about before how it was cool to see like cosplayers as Spencer and Locke. Are you ready for seeing cosplayers from Going to the Chapel showing up in cos for you? How cool is that going to be?
I've been saying that anybody who cosplays as Grandma Harriet gets free stuff.
Yes.
Nice.
The hashtag free grandma challenge. Anybody, I would love to see cosplayers for Going to the Chapel. That would blow my mind. I don't think it would be hard. I think Spencer and Locke, you got to really work hard at it. Whereas, Going to the Chapel, you just slap on a wedding dress,
Well, that was my plan. Putting on a fake gun.
Perfect. Get a maroon tuxedo and an Elvis mask.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, exactly. It's been some of the highlights of my career, seeing people cosplay as our characters, and we've actually, as far as I know, there is one Spencer and Locke tattoo.
That's what I was going to say. I thought I'd seen you guys tweet about something about someone having a Spencer and Locke tattoo, and I was like, man, that guy's at the top of your fan list, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So. People who, thank goodness, we stuck the landing of those books. But I love seeing cosplayers. I always am like, oh, if you cosplay as my characters, I will give you free stuff. Just because that is such a thrill to me. So yes, anyone listening to this, if you cosplay as my characters, you will get free stuff. Especially if you cosplay as Grandma Harriet. Grandma Harriet was actually based on my grandma, Grandma Helen. So it means a lot to see people respond so much to her particularly. So yes, I would love to see cosplayers for Going to the Chapel. So yes, anytime, people, bring it on.
Now I just want to see it happen.
Maroon tuxedo. Sorry, I write slow.
Willie's
planning. How do you spell mask?
So
don't laugh at my dumb
Is this
joke.
what you're wearing next time you go to C2E2, Willie?
Oh, this is gonna be an everyday occurrence.
Do it. We just confirmed I will be at C2E2. I just got the confirmation email 2 days ago, so I will be back at Artist Alley.
That's such a fun con too.
Yeah, and we'll actually we'll have the trade for Going to the Chapel ready ahead of that show. Ooh. So yeah. So hold on.
So, guys, if you're watching live or listening later date, we were talking about going to the chapel, and I'm going to steal the tagline I got from, I think it was either your email or Twitter, I can't remember, saying it's like Die Hard meets Wedding Crashers about a bride with cold feet who becomes the ringleader of her own hostage situation when her wedding is taken over by bank robbers. And then, brief aside from me, yes, that's as fun as it sounds.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just getting outfit ideas.
It's true. You can find it right now at your local comic shops. So go to your local comic shop, pick up the book. You won't regret it. That's what we're promising you.
And support your LCS.
Yeah,
I don't like acronyms.
Local comic shop.
Thank you.
Man, I'm re-looking at the Action Lab actual list of published comics now. When they started, I was literally on my pull list. It said all Action Lab. And one of my happiest days was when I had to remove that because they had too many titles coming out.
I mean, you know, they're a publisher that like they've got they've got such a diversity of content. And that's the thing, like it's I think that's to their benefit, and sometimes I think it's to their detriment a little bit. Is that you know, we've got you know, it's a publisher, like I said, they do Princeless and they do Zombie Tramp, and I know for it's sometimes a little bit of a weird brand perception. I know when I've called retailers for Spencer and Locke, they asked, "Is this like Zombie Tramp?" And I was like, "Do you want it to be?" You know,
and I forgot to. They did Bo Plushie Gangsta.
Yeah,
that one was so good.
You know, that's a deep cut. I haven't thought about that book in a while. Yeah, we've got but yeah, I you know, they've got so many cool books, and I think Action Lab, you know, look, I have no illusions, and I say this as a person who loves Action Lab. I think sometimes press can get a little wrapped up in what's considered the sexy publisher. You know, a few years ago that was Black Mask. I think right now it's Vault. You know, Boom, I think, does a pretty good job at sort of, you know, maintaining its allure as sort of a sexy publisher, where, you know, if Boom puts its marketing might behind a book, you know, that will sell. And I think they've been doubling down on it recently, because they've gotten, not just they're doubling down on books, but they're doubling down on books by really established names. When you've got Kieran Gillen or James Tynion, for example, like, those books are going to fly because those are creators that have established their bona fides. So, but what I was saying about all this is that Action Lab, you know, I think they get underestimated a lot, and I think sometimes, you know, I think oftentimes that's to their detriment, because, you know, there's just a lot of publishers out there, and I think press is always interested in the hot new thing. But I think there are other times where, at least in my sense, it's been really helpful, where you can say, oh, well, like, people have said for Spencer and Locke, they've been like, oh, I didn't know Action Lab put out books like this. And I'm like, yeah, like, you know, they rolled the dice on us, and they rolled the dice on us when nobody else would. And I always say, I remember where I came from. And that's really, you know, that's important, is sort of knowing the people who gave you your shot and really going to the mat for them whenever you can. And so, I mean, that's why I really enjoy working with Action Lab. You know, part of the reason I was so distracted was my publisher was literally asking me, like, oh, are you going to be at Baltimore or New York? And I was like, yes, I will. He's like, do you have covers for those? And I was like, I've got a New York Comic-Con variant, and it's really good. It's really good. It just got turned in a couple of days ago, nice. And it is terrific.
Can you name the artist?
Not yet. Give me a couple weeks. We'll be announcing it probably right after Rose City. We did just announce you know, our Rose City Comic-Con variant by our series colorist Liz Kramer. But yeah, like it's one of those things that, and this is going back to working and going to the chapel a little bit, is that we've been really fortunate that I wanted to sort of try to swing outside of our coverage in terms of the artists that we had attached to the cool thing is we've got sort of a murderer's row of cover artists on this book, where there are people who they wouldn't be able to draw interiors, and to be honest, they're so in demand they probably wouldn't be able to draw even like a full thing of variants, but they were like, we can do a cover for this because we love this concept. And so, we've already shown we've got, Lisa Sturl did our first issue cover. And then Sweeney Boo from Marvel Action, Captain Marvel, she did our issue 2 cover. It's terrific. And then issue 3, we just announced it. Emily Pearson from The Wilds did that cover. And we got a really cool artist for issue 4 that we haven't announced yet. But MJ Erickson from the Thrilling Adventure Hour did our San Diego cover. That thing like flew off the table. I actually regret not printing more of those because people they loved it. They loved that cover. They were just beating down the doors for it.
You still got one for yourself, right?
I've got, yes. I have a small handful left that I'm like, oh, I can't sell these. Like, right. I was like, well, I got to keep one. My mother and my girlfriend each want one. My interior artist wants one. The cover artist wants one. And I was kind of like, well, that's all I got left. So
works out perfect.
It worked out. But yeah, just to go back to, what you were saying, I mean, there's something to be said for having freedom as a creator. And to be honest, at this point in my career, I value freedom more than I value numbers and more than I value even infrastructure in a publisher. Because Action Lab, at the end of the day, the infrastructure that they've got is all the stuff I find important. They get us in the direct market. They get us in Amazon. They get us in Comixology. They get us in Barnes and Noble. You'd be surprised at how many publishers can't hit that simple criteria. And I feel like, yeah, there are other publishers where I'd sell double my numbers or maybe triple my numbers. Those are also publishers though that would, I don't know if I could sleep at night because they would sort of muck around with the final product.
It wouldn't be what you had envisioned then potentially, and that'd be tough.
Well, and to be honest, it's not even so much what I envisioned because I'm always willing to take notes if it's in service of the final product. However, I think there are a lot of times where it's not so much in service of the final product as the notes are, oh, well, this is what I think it should be. And it's really tough as a creator to get a sense of which notes are in the service of the story and which notes are trying to change the story into something it's not. And I feel like Action Lab, because they just say, we trust you, like tell the story that you pitched us. You get that kind of clarity of purpose.
Sure.
A little bit. And it's not to say that you can't have things change and you can't adjust things. I definitely am known to adjust things on the fly. Spencer and Locke 2, for example, we had a riff on Stupendous Man from Calvin and Hobbes that was like last second kind of like I had finished writing issue 2, or I had finished writing a draft of issue 2, and I was just like, this draft of issue 3 is not, I'm missing something. And I was like, oh, let's do Stupendous Man. There's a really easy way to fit that in. And so I kind of reworked a little bit of issue 2 to set that up. And issue 3 wound up being like my favorite of the whole run. And, but yeah, it's like the fact that you have a publisher that's just kind of hands off and just says, do your thing. It's a remarkable act of trust in an industry that I don't think is very good at that. And I think the result is, no matter what you're seeing at Action Lab, it's an unbridled vision from the creator, and sometimes that sort of goes very over the top and larger than life. But I think ultimately it makes the books more interesting and more readable and just more exciting for readers to pick up.
Sure. I've loved it. I'm one of those readers, and I've enjoyed pretty much everything you've gotten to do with them. And there's a lot of other Action Lab stuff I've read too. Probably doesn't hurt that they're just up the road too. So
yeah. I my brother is actually be moving to Pittsburgh.
Oh, nice.
And so I was like, oh, cool. Well, now when I get to visit you, I'll get to hang out at my publishers too. So, but yeah, no, Action Lab's been terrific. And I'm looking forward to working with them as long as they'll have me. And yeah, we've got at least one more book down the pike, and
Nice.
hopefully a few more.
That's exciting. So, like we were mentioning, going to the chapel right now, you can pick it up at your local comic shop. You can also get it added to your pull list. So we encourage
Yes.
you, read the first
Please
book,
do.
be like, oh my God, this is great, and put it on your pull list.
Yeah, you can pre-order issues 2 and 3 now, and this is a 4-issue mini. Like I tell all my readers, I try not to keep you on the hook any longer than you need to be, both for your wallet and my sanity.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you can pre-order issue 2 with the code AUG 1914 82 83 and 84, and you can pre-order issue 3 with the code SCP 19 13 67 68 and 69. Nice. So yeah, it's a really fun series, and like I said, it's an action crime rom-com. So it's not like anything else you're going to see in the stands. But if you're a fan of books like Crowded, or The Fix, or Assassination, or Sex Criminals, or just any of the the runs on Hawkeye, whether it's Fractions or Kelly Thompson's, you're gonna dig this book. You're gonna love it, and I think, yeah, it's gonna be the kind of shotgun wedding you wish would never end.
Perfect. And you're making the convention tour right now too. So where
I
can people
am.
find you coming up then?
So I will actually. I'm traveling to Portland this week
Okay.
for Rose City Comic Con, where we'll have Liz Kramer's wraparound variant cover. We printed less than 100 of them, so I think they're going to go fast. I will be at Baltimore Comic Con, or I'll be at New York Comic Con next, where I'll be tabling at the Action Lab table for as long as they'll have me. We'll have a New York Comic Con variant that we have not announced yet, but by a really cool artist. LA Comic Con the following week, and then back to the East Coast for Baltimore Comic Con. I've also got a signing this week, Wednesday, at Golden Apple Comics in Los Angeles. So if people are interested in that, definitely stop by, and keep your ears out on my social media. I'm at Twitter at PeposeD, Twitter and Instagram, or go to the chapel on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are trying to lock down details. I may be doing a Portland store signing the night before Rose City. So as soon as we have the details finalized on that, we'll let everybody know.
So what we're hearing here is you're making tracks and you're going to be everywhere.
I'm gonna be everywhere. If a kidney stone can't take me out of commission, I will be everywhere.
Multiple swings from West Coast to East Coast. You're going to be in jet lag hell, my friend.
I will be jet lag hell. Whoever scheduled Baltimore the week after Baltimore, the 2 weeks after New York and a week after LA. I love Baltimore, but I'm dying. Yes, but no, I'm very excited about the whole thing.
You're gonna get home and be like, just let me sleep for about 3 straight days, and then I'll be ready to do real work again.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody who's waiting for a script from me, gotta wait a little longer.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're gonna have to wait a few days.
All I'm hearing is I'm too busy to be friends with Willie Nelson on the PlayStation. Mr. Big Shot over here.
I'm too busy to be friends with my own PlayStation. But
Fair.
yes, no, we'll make that happen for sure.
Well, David, as usual, it's been a blast having you here, and it's super exciting to hear everything you've got going. And we're
Thank you.
converts, and we're hoping that folks that listen and watch the show, we're hoping you're converts too. So please, like we mentioned, we're gonna keep harping on you. Go to your local comic shop, pick up issue 1, put a pre-order in for issue 2, 3, and then put it on your pull list so you get 4. Do it.
Yeah,
Do it.
do it. You're not gonna regret it. You're all gonna love this book.
Usually I say, don't tell me how to live my life, but I'm enjoying how you're telling me to live my life.
Yeah, we're enriching your life. So
Exactly.
so
Thank you.
so, yeah, enjoy it.
We've made your life better here, Willie. That's the goal.
Well, I mean, you try to every week. Most times you fail. This week is a success.
Well,
Good on you.
We've got to bring in the big guns to enrich your life, Willie.
We talking dicks here?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
Sorry about that.
Every time.
Every time. Well, David, we know you're probably booked up solid. You got other stuff going on. You're welcome to hang out with us if you want. We're probably going to go for another 20 minutes, but if you got to drop off, that's also fine too.
I have to run, but thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh,
and
sure.
For all the listeners, thank you so much for buying my books and for pre-ordering my books. And if you like Spencer, going to the chapel. So tweet us. Let us know what you think.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us, David. Good luck, and good luck with the book, and good luck with all your travels you've got coming up.
Of course. Thank you, guys. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
Don't tell me I live my life.
Frickin' Willie.
Thank you for that, Willie. So, guys, that was David. He's been here 3 times now. Every time he's come, we've told you to buy his books. So buy his books. That's what we're telling you right now.
Yep.
We
It's
enjoy-
very simple. It's very simple.
We enjoy having him here, and hopefully we'll get him back here for the next round of books he's putting out, because he's been teasing that something's coming. And while we may not know 100%, we know we're going to like it.
And we know it's coming from Action Lab, so I know it's probably going to be on my pull list.
Yeah, so we're going to double whammy it. And looking at the time right now, we had almost an hour with David. We chatted with him, so we're running tight on time. We're going to do super quick news and then wrap things up, because I know at the very least we can talk Anthony's news, which is dated but still cool. So why don't we just roll on in to the news of the week?
If you say so.
Live from the ATGN studios on the internet. It's the news of the week.
So the news of the week, it's that part of the show where we run down what's in our minds some of the most interesting, geeky and or nerdy news to have popped up since our last episode. Now, we're going to make this quick, and we'll kick things off with Anthony, because I think he really wanted to talk about this 2 weeks ago when it first came up, and technical issues and yada, yada, yada. It sucked that we couldn't get it out there, but it's still worth talking about. So, Anthony, what do you got for us?
I got the big announcement that came at the PowCon. Yeah, I guess it was I think now it was 3 weeks ago, the Sunday that Kevin and Mark Bernard made the announcement. It had been something they'd been teasing for a while on Fat Man on Batman, or Fat Man Beyond, that they were coming up with a new show, and a whole bunch of people had guessed all the different stuff that was coming out, what they would be working on. But it was announced at the PowerCon that they are bringing they finally got some of that Netflix money, and they are bringing an animated, what's being called an anime version of Masters of the Universe back to Netflix. So, as I had hoped, the return of She-Ra led to the return of the Ultimate Male, the Ultimate He-Man. We're getting another He-Man series. Eternia is returning with Kevin Smith as the showrunner. Mark Bernard is one of the writers, and I'm super stoked. I know a lot of you guys, like, I can't remember if you guys had mentioned whether or not you had watched it as kids, but I was born in 78. He-Man came out in 83. So I was literally 5 years old. I was the perfect age for this show, and it was the coolest thing in the world. Like, my big wheel was the He-Man big wheel, where the spokes that held on the front tire were made out of swords.
Nice.
Like, I had my Eternia. I had all my He-Man toys. I loved this show. And it's been redone twice before. They've done 2 different versions of updating the show, which have both had, plus and minuses about them. Well, what's really cool about this is that they said they're going to do, it's going to be called Masters of the Universe Revelation. And they're going to take all the actual solid storyline from the original series and continue that. And it's basically going to give you the types of stuff you always wanted watching that show as a kid, or, watching the reruns later on if you watch it later. Well, you're going to see, hopefully, like, the actual... I mean, they haven't promised the final fight between He-Man and Skeletor, but that basically seems to be what they're teasing, is the final showdown. And one of the most important things that I thought about the announcement was they talked about the guy who is their executive with Netflix. And they said not only, because usually, the biggest thing Creative Sphere is, notes from the studio that's, some studio guy that doesn't know anything. This is a guy who's one of the world's biggest He-Man fans. I guess he actually helped run the He-Man.org website, like putting information up about the characters. And they said he was in the writer's room and actually giving, like, suggestions and story ideas that worked into the show because they were so good. Some of the other writers were kind of mad they hadn't thought of it. So, like, this is a show where even the executives running it are in love with the property. So I'm super excited to see. I mean, it's probably going to be 3 to 4 years before we actually get the cartoon, But the idea that Superman's or He-Man's coming back, and it's coming back with a bunch of people that have a love for the property. This is the type of shit I love seeing when it's a continuation of an old property. Is people that actually love it, like what they just did with the Dark Crystal. If you haven't seen that on Netflix, it's fantastic. The whole Froud family worked on it, and basically every Henson worked on it. Like, it's the families of the people that made the original show came back and made a loving reinterpretation of the original product. That's the way you do remakes, reboots, redos, whatever you want to, how you ever want to do these shows. But yeah, He-Man's coming back, and I'm freaking stoked because I loved He-Man as a kid. I love me some He-Man. I can't wait for more.
I did too. I didn't watch them when they first came on, but I caught them in syndication, and I had boatloads of the He-Man toys as a kid because we could buy them in the thrift stores where kids were cleaning them out. So I had like Castle Grayskull. I had the what was the spider thing that walked? Spydor, I think is what it was, or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Powered with D-size batteries or some nonsense like that. So I
like
love
the
this
Karnak
stuff.
tank was the big spider tank.
Yeah, there was all sorts of stuff. I remember that. I'm curious to see where they go with it. They made a point of saying it was a continuation of what happened before. Honestly,
Yep.
I don't remember where they left off in the cartoon until they tried to do their New Adventures of He-Man, which was hot garbage. So I hope it's not continuing New Adventures of He-Man because...
No, it's continuing the original. That was the funny thing, was the original series didn't have much of a through line through it. It was designed as basically one-off episodes. And so for them to say they're continuing that story, that's the weird thing because, yeah, in the updated version, they tried to do like a continuing narrative. And like I said, there was good and bad in both of the remakes that they did. Because like the one where Adam actually looked like a small teen. And then when he turned into He-Man, he got huge. Like, it always bugged me. The original Page Boy haircut Adam was just this giant guy in a pink shirt, and nobody could tell he was He-Man. It was worse than fucking Superman's glasses. Like, it was the worst fucking secret identity ever. It's like, oh, why is there only one guy in all of Eternia that looks like he weighs 300 pounds of solid muscle? And he disappears every time He-Man shows up. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. It could be Man of War. You don't know that.
But yeah, it's going to be cool to see what they do with the storyline. But yeah, also, I mean, Mark Bernardin worked on Alphas. He wrote on the second season of Castle Rock. He worked on Treadstone, which is the Jason Bourne spinoff show that's coming. He's now working on the second season of Carnival Row for Amazon. He's written comic books before, Genius. Mark Bernardin's a hell of a writer, and if you've ever listened to Fat Man Beyond, every time like they have an idea for a story, like Kevin Smith will say something, then they'll ask Mark's opinion. He'll give his answer, and Kevin Smith always yells at him like, "How the fuck do you keep telling me stories that I'm never going to see that are better than what's coming out? Like, knock it off." And like, this is a guy, he's a hell of a writer, and he's got an amazing imagination. I can't wait to see what he does in the writer's room on He-Man.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I'm super intrigued to see what they do with it. Masters of the Universe and He-Man was one of my favorite cartoon properties, toy properties. The movie's super weird, but I did watch it a bunch as a kid still.
It was a weird
It was
movie.
a weird movie. Frank Langella is awesome as the kind and benevolent Skeletor, though.
That's true.
Skeletor is our hero. Skeletor is life.
People forget, man, Dolph Lundgren was He-Man and the Punisher. Like, motherfucker did work in the 80s.
They had to kind of dub over some of his lines, though.
Who forgot this?
Lots of people. Lots of people. You ask them who played the Punisher, and they'll tell you Steve. What is it? Raystone, and then
Yeah. Oh, I love that. He even reprised the role in the Marvel Superhero Squad little kid show. He was the Punisher in that too. I was like, "Are you? How? Why?"
Yeah, if you remember him and Thomas Jane, they don't remember the psychotic Punisher that Dolph Lundgren did.
Well,
where he wasn't wearing any skulls.
It's for a good reason.
That movie was crazy.
Crazy.
I mean, there's only 2 Punisher movies in my.
No, there's 3. I know because I own all 3 Punisher movies. They're all on my shelf of comic book movies. I own all 3.
Don't see the Dolph Lundgren Punisher.
I also own all 5 Captain America movies, if that tells you anything.
It does. It tells me a whole lot that you should not be able to spend your money how you want to.
Don't tell me how to live my life.
I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, I mean, I'm not telling you to. I'm just saying maybe you shouldn't be in charge.
That's fair. Well, like I said, it's on Netflix, so we'll all have a chance to watch it because, yeah, we consume everything
Indeed.
Netflix-wise. Willie, did you have anything you wanted to share this week? I know you were out last week because you were at the beach.
Oh yeah, I'll get into some at the beach stuff and what I'm into, but
Fair.
I do want to do two quick little reviews on two games that have come out, two probably lesser known games that have come out last week or
Go for it.
the week of last week. There we go. The first one is Wreckfest. I've been waiting for this game to come to console for the longest time. It's pretty much a Demolition Derby racing game. There's also Demolition Derby modes in it. I will say I'm enjoying it, but it's not as good as a game that came out 15 years ago called Test Drive Eve of Destruction, which was also a Demolition. I love that game. It could do some things that are a little bit better, that are like that game, but it just doesn't. But I'm still having fun with it. I mean, you're smashing cars up. There's even lawnmower demolition derbies you can have. There's even a sofa car where it's just like a couch with a motor in it, and you can race that. I've already done one race with that in a figure eight. So hard to steer in that damn thing. And they don't give you wheelie bars on that motherfucker either. That thing like flips back on the tip of a dime, and it's still fun. So I mean, I can't knock it for not being as good as a game that came out 15 years ago, because that game was unique, really fun. Test Drive Eve of Destruction. If you can find it on the PS2 or the original Xbox, get it. I know it costs probably a pretty penny. I found it cheap on the Xbox. Get that and play that. You will have a grand time. And of course, you can choose your names in that game. Like they have like a long list of names, and of course, I had to choose Wrong Way Willie, because why not?
I like the alliteration though. Well done.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah. And then the other game I'm talking about, which also going to talk about a past game that the company, the developer also did before about 4 years ago, which was my game of the year 4 years ago, and now they're having another game in the same genre. Supermassive Games have come out with Man of Medan. They did Until Dawn 4 years ago in 2015, and that was my favorite game of that year. And this is the start of their Dark Picture Anthology series, where each game is going to tackle like a different genre of horror instead of Until Dawn, which was a whole mismatch of just a bunch of genres, which worked for the game. That's not a count against it, but I've already played about 2.5 hours of it. Sean Ashmore, Iceman's in it from the X-Men movies, and I'm making him the biggest asshole there is in the movie. And no one's putting up with this shit, because I love it's like a AAA Telltale game where you're the writer and director of the movie, pretty much. You get to steer where it goes to and how the characters interact with other people. And I'm enjoying that the most. I'm just making him an asshole, and no one is taking his fucking shit. Just like, really, really, Iceman, get the hell out of here. And it's really good. This one is like I haven't gotten too far into it. It starts in World War II really quickly, and I think I did something that makes that part end a little early. I'm not 100% on that, because I've only done like one little playthrough of 2.5 hours in, and now it's like this. Now it's like a ghost ship, and these like treasure seeker divers are trying to come onto it. They pretty much get their boat captive by these 3 pirates, I guess. And they're saying I'm the captain now. It's weird, but I'm enjoying it. I'm wondering where this is going to go, and hopefully I can make everyone live, or make Sean Ashmore die at least. Happy death. The character Sean Ashmore plays.
I understand. It just sounded poor, and I was like, I wanted to clarify. Willie's not wishing an actor dead.
No, I'm wishing his character dead in Man of Medan, the Dark Picture Anthology. But yeah, I want that to happen to him. Some fun death. And I will say his character's name's Conrad, and this is a knock against the game. Who goes by the shortened name of Connie when your name is Conrad? That's weird. I'm just gonna say that right now.
People shorten their names to weird things. I knew a Chris that went by Topher. It was weird.
Oh, well, I mean, that actually makes sense, because that's also in the name itself. Whatever. I don't judge. Sean Ashmore's going to die. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry. Jesus. Conrad's going to die.
But thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So you've been enjoying them then? What consoles are these on, Willie?
I know Wreckfest is on Xbox One, PS4, and PC. Man of Medan, I'm not 100%. I know it's on PS4, guaranteed. Let me just It's not telling me here. Oh, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. I'm not sure if it's on PC.
Okay.
So yeah, Until Dawn was a PS4 exclusive, and looks like this one went multi-platform.
Very nice. We like those kind of games.
I want more people to enjoy this type of game because this is my favorite. Oh god, I just love this game so much.
Sounds like to me, Willie, you need to start playing these things and streaming them on Twitch again, so people.
Well,
can
if I had the internet to stream, I won't.
Well, I mean, if you weren't turning your camera on, you'd probably be okay if you were just doing a game upload and a microphone.
Nope, I tried that too.
Oh, I'm sorry, Willie.
My internet is 1 megabit. That's like the top speed for it.
Ooh.
Upload. It takes me like a good 30 minutes or maybe close to 40 to 50 minutes to upload. I don't know, a 5 to 10 minute YouTube video back when I was doing that Overwatch Wrestling League.
Well, Willie,
I told you he's on Hillbilly Dial-Up.
we're sorry.
It was the only choice I have. There's no other choices.
Interesting. Well, you heard from Willie some games you need to play. I'll go real quick with a news story. I wanted to talk about the Spider-Man news on here, but it's been done. Let's just put it this way. It sucks. I don't truly believe that they're done negotiating and something may happen at some point in time. But if you want my personal feelings on it, I think I wrote something up that was posted online. I'll put the links in the show notes. But let's talk about something that's interesting. Nintendo just filed a strange new patent in Japan where they are potentially making Joy-Cons with a hinge on them. So I'm on an article on Polygon here, and they say the hinge flips the upper portion of each Joy-Con, the left thumbstick on the left, the face buttons on the right, downward and away from the user at about a 20 or 30 degree angle. So it would put the Joy-Con on a hinge so that basically it would bend like this, which, if you think about it for gaming, could be interesting. Think about it similar like the handheld controls you have for the VR, stuff like that. Same kind of ergonomics. And they would still work to be able to slide into the Nintendo Switch unit, things like that. Now, bear in mind, just because they put in a patent, it doesn't mean they're going to do it. Reddit fans seem to think it's too small for this to really be able... Joy-Cons are too small for them to really be able to build this without making them be ginormous. Who knows what they're going to do, but it sounds interesting, and from an ergonomic point of view, it could make it a little more comfortable to play the Switch in handheld mode if you've been having issues that way before. I thought it was interesting, but really... I'd be more concerned about them fixing their Joy-Con drift problems that they have, where the left thumbstick just kind of turns to poop and starts drifting all over the place.
Yeah, I had two things on that, and that's one of them. But the other one is, the Joy-Cons are perfectly fine as is. I don't see why you would need to do any kind of revision to them.
Yeah, and who says they're actually going to? Just because they filed a patent doesn't necessarily mean anything's going to come of it. But it's interesting news, and it's interesting news in the Switch world because, hey, I like my Nintendo Switch. I play it a lot up until recently because I just got a new game I'll be playing that I'll talk to you guys about and what I'm into.
Ooh, I hope it's Dragon Quest 11.
No, Willie, it's not. It's on the Xbox. You're going to be mad at me.
Oh, well, you just followed up with a Switch new... You know what? I'm done here.
He's done.
He's done.
Really, it's mostly because the clock is chiming, I think, but really, he's done. That being said, that does wrap up our news this week. The real important thing is we got David on here to talk about going to the chapel. That's what was most exciting in our news world this week. That being said, we are going to start wrapping up the show. And how do we do that? With a little segment called What I'm Into. It's our chance to share with you folks who are watching live or listening at a later date what kind of geeky and or nerdy things we've been getting into so that maybe, just maybe, you'll want to check it out yourselves. And I'm going to say, Anthony, why don't you kick us off this week? What have you been getting into, sir?
Oh, lots of stuff. Let's see. Importantly, I will bring up my new comics that I got this week. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 11. Tom Taylor made. This is possibly the best issue of Spider-Man that doesn't even have Peter as the main star, but has the heart of the character nailed perfectly that I've read in the past 5 years. This is an amazing comic book. One of the best just single issues. Doesn't have really anything to do with the overarching story. It's just a little slice of life. One of those, One Day in the Life of, and it's dealing with Peter and Mary Jane, and it's utterly fantastic. I've been playing a bunch of Apex Legends. Finished off the first 100 levels of the Battle Pass for Season 2. So I got my Iron Rampage, the Bronze Rhino, which is fantastic looking. I love that gun. And I think I'm on 102, 103, finishing up the last 7 levels. I've been playing the new mode they added in. They added in a Wraith event with a new crazy teleportation lab. And then the event limited time mode called Armed and Dangerous, which is a giant pain in the ass. They redo the RNG for the game. The only guns available are sniper rifles and shotguns. Which so instead of the full catalog of weapons, you're down to just 6 guns. There's 3 different shotguns, 3 different sniper rifles in the game. And then they also made it to where there's only white armor, the lowest tier armor, and that armor is hard as fuck to find, as well as almost no meds and no armor cells. So the whole game mode, you can spend half the game not having armor, which is insane because it basically makes you one shot from almost any sniper rifle. So it's a huge pain in the ass. I've still not won a single match of it. I've got a bunch of top 5s, but it's also like it's really intense because like people hit the ground running. Like you can get 3 kills at the start of the match just because nobody has armor. Like it's insane. I've been playing that. I downloaded Darksiders 3. They added that for the new PlayStation free games this month. Was Arkham Knight and Darksiders 3. So I'm probably gonna do a playthrough of that on my Twitch stream, Bach 2099 over on Twitch. And then I've been doing a bunch of No Man's Sky. They had another huge update. And then, honestly, I've been enjoying the hell out of some Anthem. They put out the Cataclysm update. They had a problem with some of the things, so they added another week to the current Cataclysm event. The Cataclysm stuff, they added in melee weapons for each javelin. They've added in crystal shards that you get when you go through the new dungeon, basically. You get to buy stuff with it, wraps, skins, weapons. They added a ton of new weapons. They added new legendary weapons. They made it to where the legendary drop rate is better than it was. I did like 3 run-throughs last night and got 2 legendary weapons. So like I'm up in my Storm, I'm up in my Ranger, having a blast, and I've got enough crystals already to buy 3 full outfits. That's the crystallized version of each javelin, which are really cool looking. And I mean, before like the 60,000 coins to buy, one javelin skin was ridiculous. And now I've gotten, in less than 4 days playing, I've gotten enough crystals to buy 3 full suits worth of the special seasonal event worth. So yeah, if you ever give Anthem a chance, if you have it sitting there gathering dust, you haven't played it in 6 months, now's the time to go try it out again. They've done a bunch of patches, and honestly, in the last 2 weeks, I have not crashed. I've not been kicked out of the game. As far as I can think, every glitch that I know of that I've had problems with before has been fixed. The glitch going into your menu where it would move things around. The glitch going into your forge where you would click on one javelin and the cursor would move and take you to another one. The glitch where when you go to make consumables before you start a mission where you could create 3 of them, but then you couldn't equip them. Like it was frickin' annoying, or you couldn't create 3 at a time. You had to make 1, equip it, and then go to another slot. Make 1, equip it. Like all of that stuff's been fixed. So it's been a blast. And then let's see what I got what's it called? Brightburn. And I'm gonna watch that on a loop because that scene with the glass in the eyeball is creepy, and the broken jaw scene is fantastic, and that movie's super creepy. I watched all the Dark Crystal on Netflix. I loved that show. As soon as it was done, they auto-played the making of, and I let that run as well. The voice talent in the show is awesome. The puppeteers kicked ass, just like you'd expect from the Henson Company. It is a tour de force. It's like 10 hours of the movie. It's so good. Watch that. I started the first 2 episodes of Carnival Row, which is actually really good. Honestly, I think it's the best acting I've ever seen Orlando Bloom do, which is really amazing. And then Cara Delevingne, who was the bad guy in Suicide Squad, if you guys remember her, another one of those supermodels turned actress. And I remember watching Suicide Squad going like, wow, is she an awful actress? No, that was just a really bad movie. In Carnival Row, she's fucking fantastic. She's a really good actress. So with a good script and a good director, she can act. So yeah, it wasn't her in Suicide Squad. It was the material. And then I watched the first 3 episodes of Wu-Tang, I think it's American Story on Hulu. They got the first 3 episodes of that out. It's the creation of how all the guys that make up the Wu-Tang Clan, how they all came together in New York, and it is a fantastic show. And some of the actors they got, like people flipped out about Straight Outta Compton, seeing like young actors playing the original versions of the NWA, seeing young actors playing Method Man and Old Dirty Bastard. Like seeing a teenage version of Old Dirty Bastard is just fucking funny. Like this kid is great and he's hilarious. But yeah, it was a really good show. Just lots of good TV, lots of good stuff on the games. Like it's been fun.
So I tried to buy Anthem because GameStop did a sale where it was $9.99 for Anthem, but online only. But they wanted to charge me $10 shipping, and I was like, "F you."
What? They want to charge you a shipping charge for a digital game?
No, it wasn't a digital game. It was a disc copy of the game. But they're gonna, you could only buy the physical copy online. They didn't do it in store. It was online only for $9.99. And then they were going to charge me $9.99 shipping unless I bought $50 worth of stuff. And I was like, F you. This is bullshit. GameStop. Yeah, that was horse shit. So I'll go next. I'll go next and we'll let Willie wrap things up. So what I've been getting into,
Willie doesn't wrap things up.
Fair point. What I've been getting into, I did mention, I believe on my Facebook or Twitter, I did hop on that Disney Plus deal for buy 2 years, get 1 year free, basically. Paying basically $370 a month to get Disney Plus for 3 years. I did pull that off. Let's see. I also traded in my Nintendo Switch to get one of the new ones with the less power-hungry processor, or GPU rather. It makes a huge difference, actually, because I could play Diablo 3 for 6 hours and still have like 20% of my battery left now, it seems like. So it is nowhere near as power-hungry on playing games as the old one used to be. I also watched last week the All Elite Wrestling's latest pay-per-view where Chris Jericho was crowned the new and first and youngest ever All Elite Wrestling World Champion at age 48. He then has
I was wondering if you saw that.
Yes, he has now created his own new viral moment that's gone insane. There's already a t-shirt for it where he was celebrating and talked about getting a little bit of that bubbly, and now everyone is making memes and tweeting them, and he's having a fun time with it. He did also literally lose the title belt within 24 hours of winning. It was stolen, and then the police found it and returned it to him. So look for that to be an interesting segment where he went to Longhorn Steakhouse, left it in his limousine, and when he came back, the title belt had been stolen.
I love Jericho.
Jericho.
He's so good.
The dude's 48 years old and is still not as good as he used to be in the ring because he can't do as much as he used to, but he's still really good in the ring and arguably one of the best on the microphone and continues to reinvent himself and just make it fun to watch him on screen. And then the game I have been playing that Willie's not going to be happy about because he can't play it. I did jump on that Xbox Game Pass deal where I got Game Pass for like $1 for 2 years basically. And if you're a Game Pass subscriber, you got Gears of War 5, aka Gears 5 as they're calling it, early. It was available for me to start
Gears
playing.
Batista?
He's not in it yet, and he's only in the multiplayer, but Gears 5 is available if you have Game Pass to start playing before it releases this upcoming week. And it is actually really fun, other than them moving the chainsaw feature to a different button, which muscle memory makes it very hard to get used to that.
What?
They introduced a regular melee attack and then moved the chainsaw button elsewhere. It's
Can you configure your buttons to move it back?
You probably could, but I didn't decide to do so. The game looks fantastic. It makes use of Dolby Atmos sound really well. It is a 4K game that runs at 60 frames per second all of the time on Xbox One X.
Nice.
Now, it does occasionally scale things down when it can't keep up, but you're still talking 60 frames per second. It is gorgeous. It looks amazing. I only got to play about an hour and a half, 2 hours of it so far, but it has been a ton of fun. And if Microsoft keeps putting games of this quality out on their Game Pass, it's mind-blowing to me because you could either buy this game for $60 or buy a year of Xbox Game Pass and get all of Microsoft's first-party games included in there and a bunch of other games they put out under Game Pass. So the Game Pass program, it's interesting. And if they can keep putting games of this quality out like Forza and Gears 5, it could be pretty big for them. I really have enjoyed it so far, and I will probably play more of it this evening.
Because Xbox has the Game Pass thing. Sony has the PlayStation Plus where you get 2 free games a month. Does Nintendo have anything? Or PlayStation Now?
Was something different.
Yeah.
Did the Does Nintendo have anything like that for the Switch?
So let me clarify real
Kinda.
quick. Microsoft also gives you 2 free games a month if you're a gold subscriber as well.
Yeah.
So Willie, you can probably follow up on this one, but if you are a Nintendo Switch online gamer, you get Puyo Puyo Tetris for free. You get discounts on occasional things, but you also get a variety of old SNES and NES games for free that have been optimized now to allow online multiplayer. You can create restore points in the middle of a game, and in the SNES games now, you can rewind if you screwed something up.
The SNES games are new as of this week.
Yes, came out on Tuesday or Wednesday? I can't remember. I've been playing some of that too.
Same day or the day before Banjo Kazooie was available for Smash Brothers.
That's correct. So that's what I've been getting into. Willie, what have you been getting into, sir?
All right, I'm not done here. I'm back now. Even though it was kind of.
Oh no!
I thought he was done.
Yeah. Fuck off. Yeah. So I will say, Gears of War. I mean, if I'm going for a cover shooter, I much prefer Uncharted, mostly because of the story. Gears of War. I mean, is the story the strong point?
It's gotten better, and it's still fun to play. Gameplay
That's fair.
wise.
I like killing giant bugs.
I mean, that's fair, but I mean, Uncharted. I just love the Indiana Jones feel to it. That's what I just connect with more. But what I've been into, so last week went a little vacation thing because celebrating two of my friends' birthdays, actually 4 people's birthdays because so those 2 actually have them. It doesn't matter. We had a fun time at the river, at Pamlico River. Got to swim with some dolphins in the wild. That was pretty weird. Sure, they were like 50 feet out, but that was still the closest I've ever been to a wild dolphin. We could see them jumping out of the water, and that was cool. But there was two sayings or 2 things that 2 of my favorite things over that weekend. If you've been listening to us and you haven't watched Letterkenny, there's something wrong with you. But every now and again, mostly me, someone will just go, "Wayne," playing the. It's just the best. Watch Letterkenny, you'll get it. And then also my other favorite thing is, I don't know how I came up with this. I think we were just doing the Nixon thing from Futurama, the little jowly sound effect he does. And then of course I just had to come out like, you know what? I bet Nixon ate ass.
What?
I mean, I'm talking about the actual president Nixon. I'm sure he ate ass.
Of course you are.
I'm not sorry for that. I'm very proud of that. And I'm still playing Dragon Quest XI along with those other 2 games. Still having a blast. I'm actually still playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 every now and then. They put up those new characters for free August 30th of Cyclops and Colossus. And you have to unlock them. Oh, nice pull with the arcade game.
Yeah, I know. I thought you'd like that.
Yeah, you think that's gonna pass by me? But you do have to unlock them from like the rifts, along with also the 3 new costumes they came out with, which was like the original Miss Marvel outfit with like the black leotard with a lightning bolt through it, the Gladiator Hulk from Thor Ragnarok, and what was the other one? I cannot remember. It probably was not all that important. Maybe the Spider-Man symbiote suit?
I don't know.
Possibly. I can't remember. The suits are a little too late. They needed to have something better by the time of release. And plus, to get the Hulk one, you have to be level 85, or at least that's the recommended level to beat. You have to go through a rift and beat a rift to get it. Level 85, Chris.
Damn.
And it's a solo rift thing, so you have to be the Hulk to get through it. I'm guessing. I was like, I haven't even unlocked Loki yet, so I've been trying to level up my characters just to be able to do that. But yeah, Dragon Quest XI. I am just shy of 80 hours into that game, and it's still. I believe there's at least 20 more hours left into it too. This is going to be ridiculous. If you're looking for a classical turn-based JRPG, you're doing yourself a disservice by not getting this. I know it's on the PS4. I don't know if it's on the Xbox One, and I think it's coming out soon for the Switch, or if it's not out already. I'm not sure. It's called the S Definitive Edition or something like that, which also has like where you can also put the game in like a 2D sprite mode at any time, I believe.
That is kind of cool, actually. I'm intrigued by that.
And I did kind of look this up, or I found this out randomly. If you beat Dragon Quest 11, at least on the PS4, I know for a fact. I don't know about the Switch at all. It will give you a code that you can put in at this website, and it'll take you to another website that's inaccessible without the code. And then you can actually download the first Dragon Quest game for the PlayStation or the 3DS.
That's cool.
Which is weird. You beat a game on the PS4, you get a free 3DS game.
That's very weird.
I mean, that, and apparently it's not like any version they put out of it before, like, you know, when they remake those old, like, you know, old ones. It's like something completely new that they're just putting out for free.
Huh.
Like the whole UI is just maxed out. I was like, okay, well, this is fucking great. I can't wait to beat this game and play through Dragon Quest, the original. So yay.
It's classic.
And and I got the Regal Movie Pass this week. I've already seen 5 movies this week, 3 in one night.
Damn.
Yeah, I went to go see Good Boys, which was okay. Movie's not what I was expecting. It's okay. It's good. It's good. I'm not gonna. It's better than okay. It's good. Not great. It's a little weird. Like for reasons I'll do in post show, only between us. I can't be talking about this on the thing. But and then what was the next movie we saw? Lion King was the last one. That movie should not have got made at all.
Well, they already made it. It's just animated and from 1994.
It's the exact same movie. It's hardly any differences.
Yeah.
I was like, what is the purpose? It's like Gus Van Sant's Psycho.
The purpose
like,
is money.
What is?
The purpose is money.
I was doing it. Then I can't remember that middle movie was. Oh yeah, Hobbs and Shaw. And of course, I haven't seen. I've only seen like I think the first 2.
Fantastic Four presents Hobbs and Shaw.
Did you say Fantastic Four?
I did. Fast and Furious presents
The Fantastic Four present Fast and Furious.
Oh, that's a much better. I want to see that movie where The Rock is the Thing, and then Statham could be Johnny Storm. Yeah.
I've only seen like the first 2 Fast and Furious. Oh, I did see the 4th one, which one is The Fast and The Furious, and which one is just Fast and Furious? That's fucking confusing.
4 and 5, I think. I don't remember.
No, the first one is one, and then the 4th movie is the other. They just either they add the does or they take them away. It's like this is a good.
The 5th one is just Fast 5.
Yeah, so I know it's the 4th one. So I've seen those 3 movies.
I think 4th one is Fast and Furious.
And then also Ready or Not, which is it could have been a good horror movie. It could have been, but that twist at the end was like. It was kind of like Daenerys and Game of Thrones.
They don't stick the landing.
Well, pretty much like her going like crazy. You know, that's in the whole series. It goes from like 0 to 15%, and then the last 3 episodes it goes the other 85%. You're like, what? You can't go that fast. Like slow.
Oh,
the character motivation at the end of that movie just like makes no sense.
That was another thing I forgot. I finished reading the first Game of Thrones book this week. That is a fucking seriously good book.
And then the last movie I saw was yesterday. I did an upcharge for the IMAX version, which is very easy to do. I love that you can upcharge. You know, do a simple upcharge for IMAX and 3D or whatever. Fucking love it with that unlimited pass. I went to go see It Chapter 2, which is I'm gonna say it's not as good as the first one.
That's highly disappointing.
No, I mean not by much.
Good.
I mean it's not like it's a bad movie, but I mean the first movie was just better. I was like the setting of it, like the story kind of flowed a bit better in the first chapter 1 movie. It's just called It. They don't call it Chapter 1, do they? I mean it is what it is, but
probably not. It'd be like people that say Friday the 13th Part 1. It's just Friday the 13th, motherfucker. It wasn't Part 1. It was just the first movie.
Oh, and I will say Stephen King does a nice cameo in this movie too. It's funny. He makes fun of like his own writing in it.
Nice.
It's like a running joke with old Professor X's character James McAvoy.
Very nice.
And
you've been a busy man.
Well, I mean, it's been 2 weeks, man.
That's true. That's true.
I've just been living my own awesome life, buddy. That's all I can tell you.
That's fair. Just keep doing that. You do you. That being said, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for hanging with us through technical issues and ridiculousness. We're getting back on schedule where we need to be. There might be one last hiccup coming up, which I haven't had a chance to talk to these guys about. So stay tuned to the social media to see what's going on, and we will let you know there. But that being said, we are going to shut this thing down after we remind you, go check out the back catalog, youtube.com/GonnaGeek. You can find all of our old shows there, all of the other Gonna Geek live videos as well. Any final thoughts before we shut this thing down, gentlemen?
The Demigorgon is coming.
Oh yeah, that's also a thing. The rumor I had was my last time here is true, and it's coming. There's no release date for the Stranger Things DLC for Dead by Daylight.
It's on the test
TTV.
server right now. Yep.
Interesting indeed. Well, guys, stay tuned. There'll be more info on that. But for now, we're going to start shutting this thing down and hope you guys have a good week. Don't get into any ridiculous stuff. And go pre-order Going to the Chapel. Do it right now. Bye, guys.
Right
Yeah.
now. Did you do it yet?
Thanks for listening to this brand new episode of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast. Don't forget, we'll be back next Sunday live at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central over at live.atgnpodcast.com, channel 3 of the Alpha Geek Radio app, and over at our network home at gonnageek.com/live. If you have any feedback for the show, please contact us atgnpodcast@gonnageek.com, on our hotline number at 304-806-ATGN, or even better, go to Twitter and send us a message at ATGN Podcast. The music you've heard in this show is produced by Kevin MacLeod and can be found at incompetech.com.